You couldn't write it, could you? You've got a situation where Arsenal are getting mugged off by VAR, according to plenty of people, and then all of a sudden, the exact same, to some people, situation happens in another game and a different result's given. We've got a lot to talk about in today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is incredibly appreciated. I hope you've had a fantastic weekend. I hope everything's doing good for you and yours. And I hope you're feeling a bit better than I am. I don't know what it is recently. I was ill last week, I think it was. Had a bit of a tickly throat. Last night I woke up at 3 a.m. just feeling proper wintry, and it's kind of carried on to this morning. So we'll see how long the voice plays up for. We'll see how long it survives for. Hopefully long enough to get all of our news out and some of your questions as well. But we'll play it by ear. But good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Really appreciate your time. Black Shine, Damien, Granddaddy Good, Paul, Louis, other Paul, Stevie, Damien, Munn, Kim, Dylan, Grantley Poos, Temi, Amira, Bakary, Lasagna, Oliver, Matt G, Patrick, Leonard, Edison, Stephen, Jamil, plenty more of you guys and girls too. Thank you as always for tuning in and joining us. Please, if you would ever be so kind, please do drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. But I imagine, the mood is low. I get it. I empathize with you. Yesterday, I kind of checked out a little bit from the action. I checked out from Man City, Liverpool. I thought it was kind of inevitable what would happen in both games. And even though, of course, and we'll go into it in more detail, that ultimately what I thought would happen did happen in the end, still I found myself just kind of unbothered by it all, just because I feel right now that I just don't need extra stress. I don't need this extra scrutiny. I just thought, let's just play it out. Let's just enjoy a Sunday after Saturday's misery, and then we can refocus on Monday and talk all about what has happened. So we start with, of course, Liverpool winning their game over Chelsea. This was a fixture, of course, that with it brought controversy, but Liverpool win against Chelsea to take themselves 4 points clear of Arsenal ahead of their game against the Gunners, of course, next week, which is a really, 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 really big game as well for Arsenal, because if Arsenal were to lose that game, it would all of a sudden put them as many as 7 points. 7 points behind Liverpool, which is a huge gap at such an early stage of the season. So all the pressure is certainly going to be on Arsenal to get that victory next week. But it was a game filled with, not filled with Diogo Jota coming off injured. Whether or not that turns out to be something which costs him his place in the Liverpool team next week remains to be seen. But there was some controversy. 2 points in particular. Let's talk about this one first. Tosin, I believe it was, bringing down Liverpool forward. Looked like he's clear through on goal. What's the difference between this and Saliba is the question. Well, the difference between this and Saliba is obviously the position of the covering Chelsea player, who is only, I think, 4 or 5 yards away from the incident, and would be argued to be a covering player in this scenario. But I absolutely empathize with people's points of view around this. I think there is, a question mark about the fact that the Chelsea defender is a few yards behind, even though he's much closer than what Ben White was. I think because he's significantly behind rather than being in line with the Liverpool forward, that's where there's a little bit of a question mark here as to why this is a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity, or rather why Saliba's was and why this isn't. If the player isn't impeded, is there a chance that he can be caught? I'm 50-50 on it with this. I'm thinking what I try and do is I try and put Arsenal into this scenario, and not the Arsenal that the feeling that we have that we're referee differently. But I try and look at it, if this was Arsenal or against Arsenal, how would I feel about it? And I feel like you could put up a pretty strong case, to be honest. I feel like you really could put up a pretty strong case as to why this could be a red card when Saliba was also sent off. Isn't it amazing, though, that like two incidents happened in such a short space of time to one another? It happens so often. I remember when, was it Olivier Giroud, of course, scored that scorpion kick. It happened like in the same weekend that Mkhitaryan scored one for Man United. It is really odd how these things happen in such close proximity in football to one another. But yeah, this is one I think that I'll be interested to read and watch some of the ref watch about it. I'll be interested to read Dale Johnson's thoughts in ESPN about it this morning. But there is going to be some very interesting thoughts. The other scenario, which I don't have a slide for, and I should have included a slide, but in the franticness of making the slides this morning, I forgot about it. I don't really understand how Chelsea don't get a penalty. I'll try and put a slide together while I'm talking. But Jadon Sancho, I think, is taken out in the box, goes to turn, controls the ball, is in control of the ball, then gets stamped on. Unfortunately, the video that I quote tweeted has now been taken down, it seems. But I don't really know how Chelsea weren't awarded a penalty for the stamp on Jadon Sancho in the box. I really don't know how that wasn't a penalty. It's really strange to me that wasn't given, because Sancho's in control of the ball. He makes the turn. He's still in control of the ball. The Liverpool player goes through, misses the ball, puts his foot down on the foot of Sancho, brings him down in the box. I think it's an absolute clear-cut penalty. I don't understand how it's not a clear-cut penalty. I really, really don't. So, yeah, very strange that wasn't given. And there's obviously a question mark about this on the other side of things as well. You can talk about Anfield tax, but Liverpool weren't given this decision as well. Liverpool go on to win and go 4 points clear. Earlier that afternoon, goodness gracious me, we are constantly being reminded of how luck can be involved in title races. And, Arsenal, to be fair, have had their fair share of late goals in recent seasons. Even this season, you think about the Leicester game and how late Arsenal, of course, were in that game. But Man City, John Stones, again, in added time, getting a massive, massive goal to give Manchester City 3 points on the road at Wolves. I suppose the positive that you take from these two games in particular is obviously that both these teams are gettable, are fallible, can be got at. City have conceded a lot of goals this season, particularly first. They've often conceded first in a lot of games. And that gives me encouragement, of course, that, that these players and these teams are not beyond catching and beyond dropping points just like we have, and that it's going to be a very open race, I think, this season. And a lot of teams are going to take points off plenty of others, but it is incredibly downheartening. I was actually having a Sunday roast out yesterday, and I checked the score, and it was 1-1 going into like the 85th minute. And I was like, right, if I look at my app before the end, they always score. I just find it that I always end up jinxing these situations whenever I look at the app. So I was like, I'm not going to look. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my meal. And then in 15 minutes time, I'm going to check my phone and hope for the best. Of course, superstitions didn't matter, and Man City got the result. But there is a lot of question marks also about Manchester City's goal. For me, this is fine. I don't see why this goal should be ruled out. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions going around about the rule, and about the rule of kind of how the offside works in terms of interfering with play. So what people feel is that Bernardo Silva has blocked and backed into Sarr during the corner, which makes him active and therefore interfering with play. The problem is that there's two things wrong here. One, I don't know why on earth Wolves have not got a player moving Bernardo Silva away from Jose Sarr. It is a rookie error on Wolves' part defensively, and one of the reasons perhaps why they got such a poor record from set pieces. It is horrendous that they have not got a player protecting their goalkeeper and moving Bernardo Silva away from him. Because what people are not understanding in this situation is that Bernardo Silva can only be offside once Stones touches the ball. And the image that you can see on your screen here is the moment at which Stones touches the ball. At which point, Bernardo Silva is not near Jose Sarr. He's not in his eye line. He's not in contact with him. Jose Sarr is looking at the ball. He has got a perfect view, a perfect opportunity to respond as if Bernardo Silva is not there. The problem is that people feel as though because Bernardo Silva was pushing and in contact with Bernardo Silva as the corner was taken, that means he is interfering with play. But the mistake that people are making is that the rule is you can only be offside, of course, once the ball is played. You can't be offside from a corner, so at no point can Bernardo Silva be offside. If the ball was to go toward Bernardo Silva in this situation and he touched it and it went in the net, of course he'd be offside. If the header was to go far to the right-hand side, perhaps maybe, only maybe. This image, by the way, is taken ever so slightly before Stones heads the ball, by the way, just to avoid all clarity. This image is taken just ever so slightly, like a split second before Stones touches the ball. So for that indication in this now, and you can tell that because you can see the slight movement of the ball. You can see the slight previous frame of the ball before Stones touches it, just for all clarity. So this is the picture that you do need. There's no other picture that is needed in this scenario because it's just before Stones touches it, at which point Silva is away from the image, away from the goalkeeper. So he's not interfering with play. He's not offside, and the goal rightfully stands. And this is what VAR is for. You know, when goals are ruled out wrongfully, we need to see VAR interfere and, of course, change that decision. Salahuddin says Bernardo has an impact on the keeper decision making, so he affects play. He doesn't. If you look at Jose Sarr, he's looking directly at John Stones. He's looking directly at the ball. He's looking without an impediment of his eye line. He's got full footing. Bernardo Silva is away from him. The ball doesn't go towards Silva. The ball goes kind of centrally towards the goal. He doesn't have an impact on Stones. Is he impacting Sarr prior to the ball touching Stones? Yes. Doesn't matter. He's not offside. He moves away from Sarr before Stones touches it and is no longer interfering with play. So therefore, he is not offside. It's actually a really simple one. He doesn't foul him. You know, they're just kind of in contact. And the reason why he doesn't foul him is because Wolves are naive enough not to put a player on Silva. It's just common practice. It's common and it's basic that people need to realize that in a defending scenario from a corner, you are going to see an attacking player on the goalkeeper. As long as they're not like grabbing hold of them like Ben White would do back in the day, who's not allowed to do anymore because that's the change. And if you're only just in contact, it's a contact sport. You're allowed to be in contact with them as long as you're not holding or fouling them. If this is what you want to see goals ruled out for, I'm sorry, but Arsenal would never score from corners anymore. We just wouldn't. So I never want to see these goals ruled out. I never want to see this happen because Arsenal would lose a lot of threats from their own set pieces if that was to be the case. Now, some people might say if this was an Arsenal game and Arsenal had a player doing this, a different decision might have been given. And that brings us on very nicely to what Gary O'Neill said after the game. Because what Gary O'Neill said after the game, I think is going to get him, wrongfully or rightfully, in a lot of trouble. And I'd be very, very, very surprised if indeed he does not get in a lot of trouble after what he has said. Now, of course, for us sitting here and I'm speaking now as a fan at this point, is that people have always felt subconsciously that referees, you know, in big games, in big moments, is there an effect on referees making decisions? Now, I'll read you the quote of what Gary O'Neill said. He said, "There's no chance that people are purposely against Wolves. But is there something in the subconscious around decision-making, or without even knowing it, are you more likely to give it to Man City than Wolves? My focus and senses are heightened when we're facing Man City and Pep and Erling Haaland. Are the officials the same when it's Haaland and when it's Man City? Is there something in there that influences decision-making? And I've spoken to them about this as well, and they obviously guarantee me that there isn't. They are human. But Man City scoring a last-minute winner is a big thing. It's a bigger thing than Wolves scoring a last-minute winner against West Ham. So maybe there's something subconsciously that means that you are less likely to get them. I might be miles off, but if I had to upset someone in a street and there was a little guy and a big guy, I'm upsetting the little guy. Nothing against little guys, but there is something in there, and they definitely do it on purpose. And they definitely don't do it on purpose. I know they're 100% honest, and they're doing the best job they can, and I fully respect them. But maybe there's something that just edges it that direction. So when it's really tight. Now, Gary O'Neill has he has gone as far as he thinks he can go by saying he thinks they're honest. They definitely don't do it on purpose. But I still think that he could get in trouble here, because any suggestion of even subconscious bias about referees could get him in trouble. Whether you think that's right or wrong, by the way, and I'm not here to suggest that it's right or wrong what he said. I'm looking at it from a rule perspective. I'm looking at it a perspective that he has suggested that subconsciously Manchester City and their players and the team could get some kind of unconscious bias from referees. I feel that any suggestion of that is just dangling the bait out for him to get some kind of punishment for what he said there. I really would be surprised if he doesn't get a punishment off the back of this, whether or not you or I feel that's right or wrong, whether he's allowed opinion on that. I mean, people in the chat box, Johan says he's not wrong. Mars Cannon says Gary O'Neill said what everyone was thinking. And look, I don't disagree with you. A lot of people feel this way. A lot of people feel that big teams like Manchester City get subconscious biases, get subconscious benefits because of the size of the club, because of the narratives, because of just how it goes. That's what a lot of people feel. And while you may feel that's correct, again, I feel as though that he's going to get a punishment for saying what he said. Because it's one of those things, it's kind of one of those like unspoken, like everyone kind of gets where he's coming from, but you don't say it, because if you say it from a person in the position that he's in, it's probably going to get you a punishment. So let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what happens. But that is, I would be shocked if indeed he isn't in some way getting some recompense from that comment. I did have a slide at the start, which somehow I managed to skip over. Of course, Arsenal women returned to winning ways yesterday, which is obviously a benefit. You know, I like ending maybe on a positive subconsciously. And that benefit here is, of course, that Arsenal did indeed beat West Ham. Renee is still in charge after the exit of Jonas Eidevall. Goals from Merida Caldente, and of course we actually had a not a debut goal, but a first goal for Rosa Kafaji, which is great news. Her getting on the score sheet and having her first real contribution since arriving in the summer. So good result. Nice bit of taking away the negatives of the weekend and ending on something of a positive there as Arsenal get back to winning ways in the WSL. Of course, we are very grateful to NordVPN, as always, for helping support us here and for sponsoring us. And I recommend that if you aren't already joined up with a VPN service, that Nord does indeed become the partner of choice, because they are, without question, the undisputed champions of preventing, people from having a look at what you're doing on your social media or on your internet using your data. And when you happen to use a public Wi-Fi, you need a VPN, and Nord are, without question, the undisputed heroes in this regard. And you can get a significant discount off a 1 or a 2-year plan by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner and getting yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2-year deal. And there is 4 months extra thrown in free on top of that 2-year deal. And if you're not happy with the service, for whatever reason, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. Who can say any fairer than that? Now, the Arsenal prize that has sold out recently, as you all well know, was a signed and framed Thomas Rosicky and Jack Wilshere shirt. In terms of Arsenal prizes that are going to be going on very soon, I can tell you that right now there is expected to be new ones coming. None on the market as of right now. There are plenty of other prizes, though, for you to go and have a look at, but this one is indeed sold out, and I wish you the best of luck if you've entered into it. A massive thank you again for the last run of football prizes supporting the channel. Very much appreciative for them bringing what they do to us and helping us to make things all the better on the channel. So a massive thank you for FP for their latest run of sponsorships. Right, let's go to part 2 2 and your questions right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show where Tom tries to make sure his voice doesn't run out. Because my voice, oh goodness me, it's struggling. I've got through 20 minutes without breaking too much, without it really doing too much of an issue. So let's see if I can go for at least another 10 to get as many of your questions as we can. Let's go to Steve, who says, "Hi Tom, is VAR making more incorrect decisions than correct decisions? It seems to me controversial decisions that happen every week. Howard Webb should be sacked. In my opinion, sorry, mate, I feel very deflated at the moment." You and me both, Steve. I absolutely empathise with you. There's a lot of deflation around the Arsenal fan base at the moment, and that's completely understandable. We are only a win against Liverpool from that narrative changing completely, but we're also only a defeat away from Liverpool for things being perhaps even in panic stations to be 7 points behind Liverpool at such an early stage of the season. So yeah, it's a huge game on Saturday. Looking forward to it, of course, because it's a great opportunity. Hopefully Arsenal get some of their key players back by that point. But yeah, there's some real question marks. Microphone issue. Let me see. Did I just change something? Sound. I changed it to that. Settings, audio. That was weird. Why did that happen? Don't know what's going on there. Can you hear me? No. Hold on. I'm going to refresh. Back 2 minutes. Okay, that should be fixed. I should be back. Sorry about that. That was really weird. Sorry about that. My apologies. What happened is that usually, obviously, I like using my speakers on my laptop to play sound and audio when I'm not doing a show. And when I clicked the halfway point, I realized that the show was still coming out through my speakers. So I switched it to come through here, and that clearly messed up the audio. So apologies about that. We should be back and you should be hearing me pretty comfortably now. So yes, apologies for the slight 30-second issue there. John, let's go. I thought it was a red card for Saliba in real time. My only question is, what did the ref see on screen? That was a clear and obvious mistake he made in real time. I talked through, the Saliba situation yesterday. I thought I went into a lot of detail. I went into a lot of detail about where Raya was, where Saliba was, where Ben White was, the context of where the ball's flight was. We used different angles to showcase why indeed the referee made the decision he did. The reason why he, didn't have access to all of that information before is because he changed his mind. He was asked to go over to the screen to have a look at all of the different angles, and that made him change his mind. Obviously, he was given information he didn't have when he made the decision in the first place. So it clearly was a clear and obvious error because he was then offered context and factors that he couldn't see in the moment that he made that call. So that's why the referee decided to change his mind, because he was given, greater context behind that. I still very stand firm that it was a blatant red card from Saliba yesterday, and unfortunately he should have been a bit smarter and just not brought the player down, and instead kind of run alongside him and tried to battle that way rather than taking the red and ultimately costing us big time in our next Premier League game as well. King says, do fans underestimate how much of an impact Odegaard gives us in defence in terms of control, his press, the balance and technique and creativity? Maybe a big reason why the defence is now less stable. I've said this for a long period of time, and there are fans out there that aren't the biggest supporters of Odegaard and don't feel he's as good as I feel he is. I've said since last couple of seasons at least, the guy's world class. The guy is one of the best, if not the best creator at the moment in the Premier League in terms of chances. And it's funny that, I think it's Alex did a show on the Different Knockabout. Does Odegaard hold Arsenal back? Now, that wasn't his opinion. That was just off the back of a lot of people suggesting it after Arsenal were winning games and picking up points and winning at Spurs and nearly beating City and, doing all of these things. All the narrative suddenly was Arsenal, they can win games without Odegaard. They can compete for the title without Odegaard. Well. Look where we are now without Odegaard, without Saka. Maybe you can deal with just Odegaard's absence, but Saka as well, it's a big loss. It's a huge dip in the players that are available to you, of course. So at no point do I think that, we've seen Arsenal not suffer without Odegaard. And I think that's become blatantly clear how important Odegaard is to this team and how good Odegaard is. Of course, we've suffered in his absence. Of course, we're not as dominant in his absence. And against Liverpool, it might be that we don't have Odegaard, we don't have Saliba, we don't have Timber, we don't know yet. We might not even have Saka yet. We don't know if Saka's going to be back and fit yet. We hope that he is. But goodness gracious me. I really think that whole narrative around Odegaard has made people look very silly. It's made some people look really silly because Odegaard's importance has never, for me, been in doubt. It's something that we've talked about on the channel a hell of a lot, that we've missed him and that we've really desperately needed him. And now, I think we can all agree that certainly that is the case. Philip says, Tom, why does City get more favourable decisions for VAR than any of the big six? It just isn't fair, man. Is there any data on this, by the way? I don't know if there's any data or evidence to this argument of VAR favouring Man City and their decisions. Let me just have a quick look if I can. Let's see if there is. I'm sure that there was data done that suggested how much. Here we go. So as of May 15th, 2024, teams that suffered relating to decisions in terms of a net score, Arsenal were -7. -7. Okay. Manchester City were +3. That is the third highest benefit from VAR on May 15th. This is according to data done by Overturns Decisions. Brighton +6, Aston Villa +4, Liverpool +4, Everton +3, Man City +3, Man United +3, Newcastle +3, Chelsea +2, sorry, Palace +2, Tottenham -3, West Ham -5, Arsenal -7, Wolves -17. -17 is crazy. Just to give you the May 24th, 2022 3-season net score of 3-season VAR net score. So this is obviously decisions for and against and what they've done. Manchester City were +4. Arsenal were -4 in terms of decisions taken by VAR. So there's the data for you, Philip. And the data would suggest that at the moment, the Man City get a lot of decisions, VAR overturning them in their favour. And the data shows that Arsenal get more decisions overturned against them right now. That's what the data is showing. And that's been the case in 2022. And now it was the case in May of 2024. So, yeah, that's where we're at with those stats, if you needed that. So take that and take that as you will, because I think that's it's pretty telling at the moment. Now, of course, they're all based upon decisions that have been given in games that Arsenal have taken part in and City have taken part in. It doesn't mean that they're the wrong decisions. It doesn't mean that VAR was incorrect in any of those, but it just gives you kind of an indication about decision making on the field. Ironically, what it does is that refereeing decisions have gone in favour of Arsenal on field, and then VAR have gone the other direction. Whereas for City, refereeing decisions on field have been overturned more in their favour than against them. So it is an interesting piece of data that the Dale Johnson provides there from the last few rolling years of those decisions. So there you go. Hayler says, a single man alone in front of a keeper on a corner, not offside. With all the possible laws of the universe, how is that possible in a match between Wolves and Man City. But because the reason why he's not offside when the corner's taken is because the ball is on the line. It's hard not to laugh sometimes. And I know some people say, "Oh, Tom, stop being so condescending and stuff." When you do a show as long as this, it gets tiring. It can get tiring to point out what looks so obvious and what are just laws. I'm all for discussions about if there's issues, if there's biases, if there's problems. But that Man City goal is not one to put your stick in the sand on. It really isn't. Like, it's a really obvious and easy decision to give in favour of City because, as you saw in that image that I put up on the screen, Silva is just not impeding the goalkeeper even slightly before the point of contact of John Stones. Like, I'll put it up on screen for you again. Like, it's just not it's just not there. It's just, there's just no evidence in this image here that goal should be ruled out. Zero evidence whatsoever. It's not like, it really isn't. Joey said he sent me a new angle on Twitter. I don't know why I need a new angle, mate. Like, this is the angle. You've sent me another image of. I'll put it onto the slide if you want. Let me make a new slide, and you can show me the other angle. The reason I'm laughing is because, and I'll show you why I'm laughing. Because it's very obvious why I'm laughing at this. Let me copy image, paste into here. Paste as picture. Crop that. So it fits on my slide. There we go. Right. Okay. Let's get this slide up that Joey has sent me. Okay. He's saying it's not because I don't think you're right. I'm just sending it to convince the chat. Okay, there you go. I feel like the world's against me, Joey. I'm constantly thinking everyone's out to get me at the moment. Right. Share screen. So this is the image, of course, that most people saw. And when you see it from this image, it looks like Silva's offside. And it looks like Silva's interfering with play. And this is the image that most people saw and were like, how on earth can Silva not be offside? Well, the reason Silva can't be offside is because of this image, where you can blatantly see when you rotate the camera angle by 90 degrees, Silva is not in the eye line of Sarr, he's not in the eye line of the shot, and he's not interfering with play. So there you go. Trevor says Silva pushed the goalkeeper, so the goalkeeper was off balance when the ball came in. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Trevor. And I've explained this. I can go round in circles. I can go round and round and round in circles. If Silva nudges Sarr when the corner's taken, which, by the way, is not a foul, it's a contact sport. You're allowed to nudge a goalkeeper. As long as you don't push them to the floor, so you don't trip them over, as long as you don't hold them and stop them from moving, all those things would constitute fouling. He doesn't foul him, and then he stops nudging him. He stops being in contact with him. He cannot be offside until Stones touches the ball. I don't know how many times I can say this, Trevor. He cannot be offside until Stones touches the ball. At which point, if he's still in contact with Sarr, if he's still pushing Sarr, if he's still in any way impeding Sarr at the point that Stones touches the ball, he would then be offside. I cannot make this any clearer. I cannot say this again. If you don't see it at this point, I don't think you ever will. I don't think you ever will. This isn't, as Joey said, like Ben White undoing the gloves of Vicario. That's obviously a foul. Like, but at this rate, you can't want this to be. If this was given as a foul, if you were saying what Silva was doing was a foul on Sarr, every corner in the league would be given as a foul. Every single corner taken in the Premier League would be given as a foul if what Silva did when the corner was taken was deemed a foul. You'd never get any corners going in which case Arsenal would lose a large percentage of their goals. I can't I can't just keep going around in circles. Thomas says, at least we've got something to discuss this week. Yeah, international break is over. We can talk about things now. We got things to discuss. So yeah, there you go. Mr. Reese says, obstruction. Forget obstruction. It's not obstruction. It can't be obstruction. He's not touching him when John Stones heads the ball. Oh, goodness me. He's not. Thank you, Fergus. Agreed. Not offside. He's not interfering with play. He's just not. He's not interfering with play at the point that John Stones heads the ball. Everything before that, Everything that happens prior to John Stones touching it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Philip says, Tom, should we leave Saliba out of tomorrow's game and play the same back four, which will play on Saturday? Great question. Really, really, really good question. And the reason why it's a really good question is because you've got merits on both sides. You've got one side of the coin, which is, yes, we should definitely play Saliba because you want to play your best team and you want to give yourself momentum. You want to go back. You know, Saliba is without a doubt our best player in the back four, I think. We've got a lot of really good players, but Saliba, you know, I think would argue is probably our best defender. It's a good argument for that. So we should play our best team and give ourselves the best chance of winning to give ourselves momentum going into the game against Liverpool on Sunday. Is it Sunday? I think it's Sunday. Saturday or Sunday? Why do I feel like it's Saturday? Let me double check. Matches Liverpool. Sunday 4:30. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that's one side. The other side of the coin is that, as Philip points out, do you practice with a back four that you're going to use against Liverpool? Now, there's a problem here. The problem is very clear and obvious to me. The problem is that we will be playing against a very different type of team when Shakhtar comes to the Emirates. Arsenal are going to be expected to dominate the ball far more against a side that have been struggling in the European game so far in this particular game. So any practice that this back four might have, how relevant will it be to the game states that we are going to experience against Liverpool would be the question. But Philip, I think it's a fantastic question to ask. I might leave a poll in the chat. I know we're not going to be live for too much longer, so I don't know how much relevance it will have. But I'll put up. You've heard what I've got to say. If you're listening on catch up, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. So the poll question is, should Saliba... Oh, hold on. I'm in caps lock. Should Saliba start versus Shakhtar Donetsk, or should we practice the back four we would use versus Liverpool? That's the question. So Saliba starts or Saliba left out. There you are, your two options to pick from. So off you go. And tell me what you think. I'd love to know what you think. So yeah, there's your poll. Right. Cross Junker says we should go for a 3-5-2 against Liverpool. Fergus says practice on the training ground. We need the 3 points at home in the Champions League group game. Backer Isaiah says, I think I'm going to pretend that we're still on international break and this weekend never happened. It's probably a good thing to do. Probably a good thing to do indeed. John says half and half. So one half you play with Saliba, the second half maybe you make some changes and then practice with once you've kind of secured a lead, I guess. That might be the right option. I don't mind that idea at all. Micah says the principle of fitness availability still persists for our best players. He starts if he's available. Matthew says Saliba will 100% start. Arteta is not benching him. Fizzy says practicing the back four means that we are giving more than enough away to Liverpool. Really good point by Fizzy. If you practice your back four and how you're going to play against Liverpool, against Shakhtar, you give Liverpool lots of information about what you might do, how you might fare, what weaknesses there will be. So, Fizzy, I think that's a really good point. I think I might write an article about this today. I think it's a really, really interesting piece, a really good argument, actually. And yeah, I think, Philip, you've inspired me to write an article today on this. And goodness me, do I need ideas? So, yeah, please do continue to throw your ideas. I like using the chat box as inspiration for my articles, and I will definitely take that on board. So, yes, thank you, Philip, for that. Very, very, very good question indeed. Question of the day. Joey says, for Champions League and Premier League, always go with your best available 11, aside from maybe the last Champions League group game. If we have clinched the next round, of course, that's important. Bulgarian Gooner says, thoughts on Marino's performance? I think he was fine. I don't understand the over-the-top reaction. Yeah, I was only on for a short period of time with Sophie and Dan yesterday on the Highbury squad. And there was a lot of attack on Marino's performance. Now, he only had 67.5% passing accuracy, which wasn't good. He did give the ball away a lot. It's his first start. So I am a little bit inclined to be more lenient as he beds in and as he transitions into this Arsenal team. And he was playing, one of his weaker roles. He's typically not playing that position. He plays more so as a left 8, and that's where he will be best. he's not as creative as Ødegaard. You know, you're not going to get the creativity of Merino in that role that Ødegaard will bring. So contextually, you're always going to find. But he did create our best opportunity at the end of the day. You know, of course, it came from a Kepa mistake, but he had the presence and the awareness to find Martinelli in the right place at the right time and give him a goal-scoring chance to win the game for us. And so for therefore, you know, you've got. I think there's a relative amount of leeway. I think some of the criticism of his performance has been way over the top, similar to Kivior. I had someone tweet me yesterday saying that they felt that my analysis of Kivior yesterday was, let me find the exact tweet. Mike Welsh said, a very spirited defense of Kivior from a terrible performance on the post-match podcast yesterday. Let's be honest, he was so bad that he was subbed back off again. Nothing to do with his mistake, but his Opta player stats were rock bottom 2, 0 tackles, 1-all match, for example. Again, my defense of Kivior was that I felt as though it wasn't justifiable to turn around and say that because of that display he should be sold. That was my defense of Kivior. I look at the game when he came off the bench against PSG, and once he got into the rhythm of things, he really helped us see out a game against one of the best teams in Europe. So he comes off the bench, makes a mistake against Bournemouth, should be criticised for that mistake, absolutely. But I felt that the reaction was really over the top in regard to kind of our judgment of Kivior, who is a decent defender. He's not our best defender. And I actually thought he was a bit hung out to dry by Arteta by playing him in the middle of the park rather than playing him at left back. That would have been much better, I think, for him. Would have been better for Calafiori to play more centrally, and it wouldn't have exposed a weaker element of our team by placing Kivior where we put him. And to be honest, when the idea of using kind of like his pass accuracy as kind of a criticism when you're down to 10 men and the majority of your defensive passes are going to be clearances up to an isolated Havertz, of course his pass accuracy is going to be terrible because most of his passes are clearances that aren't going to reach a target. So I don't really think that's a justifiable way of kind of looking at that, really. I understand it was definitely worthy of criticism for his mistake. He didn't have a great game, but I felt like people were way over the top. Similar to the Merino situation, way over the top with how people talked about. Overall, it wasn't a good performance. I felt our best player on the pitch was Declan Rice, and he only got a 7.2, I think, from whoscored.com. And, you know, that was the only player that got into the sevens was Declan Rice. So that kind of told you the story about how we performed. But again, I feel people went over the top. We had 60 minutes with 10 men on the field. No Saka, no Ødegaard. It's not a surprise that we didn't win. It's frustrating. It's annoying. And we need to look into things a lot more. But it's not surprising. Our luck this season has been it's just been on the absolute floor. Like when you think about luck this season, Arsenal just haven't had any of it, really. Maybe the penalty against Atalanta, Raya's save against Villa. Do we use all of our luck out in those moments? Maybe. I don't feel like we were lucky when we won late against Leicester. I felt like we deservedly won that game late on. I think we deservedly beat Southampton. I think we deserved 3 points at City after being down to 10 men in controversial circumstances. We're unlucky that we've got the red cards against City and Brighton. We're unlucky we conceded a very late goal against City that came from a deflected short corner. We're unlucky that Timber's been missing, that Saka's been missing, that Ødegaard's been missing, that Tomiyasu can't somehow play more than 20 minutes. The Zinchenko's been missing. The Calafiori was missing for the North London derby. That we've had to force ourselves to play Partey at right back. That Merino, as soon as he signed, had a shoulder injury that kept him out of the first portion of the season. That Martinelli's had injury issues. The luck this season has been on the floor. And I just hope that across the season it balances out. And if it indeed is that case, then we are due some huge fortune. We are due some massive fortune our way, because so far this season has been horrendous in terms of the bad luck we've had. So I really hope that things do change. Hassan, our resident Liverpool fan in the chat, says Liverpool win this season. Ain't nothing y'all can do. We'll see about that, Hassan, next week. Big game on Sunday between Arsenal and Liverpool. I'm very much looking forward to it. Hopefully Arsenal get some of their players back. And so that's that's still to come. Stephen says, does the lack of luck worry you for the rest of the season? I remember a few seasons ago, it just seemed everything was falling our way. But this season so far, it seems like everything is very hard. I really hope, Stephen, that we start to get a balance. I really, really do, that things start to the scales start to tip back in the other direction. To win a league, you need quality, you need consistency, you need luck. Man City have got quality and consistency, but they've also had a lot of luck in the last 6 or 7 seasons. And Liverpool too, when they won their season, a lot of luck. They benefited a lot, I think, from it being the pandemic. That season, I think, really did benefit them, having that benefit. They play in a quiet stadium most of the time, besides the first 5 minutes. I think that when it comes to Arsenal, we do need this scale to tip in our favour a little bit more, and I hope that it does, because at the moment it's crazy. Guns Yellow Ribbons Fergus says 1 loss in 8 games. Calm down. And this is true. Was it James who put the tweet out yesterday? Let me see if it was James. Let me scroll down. It was a really good tweet about kind of context about how people should feel. I think I retweeted it. Maybe it was a different James. Maybe it was Alex. I need to find which James it was. Was it James B? By the way, big happy birthday to James B. Yesterday. Good friend of the show, of course, as well, and certainly one who is a big support. I know a lot of our listeners really enjoy James's work, and quite rightly too. Here we go. It was the third James. It was James Cook who tweeted this. Crazy how hyperbolic our online support can be after one defeat, which is our first of the season, our first away defeat in the league of 2024, and not to mention that we had our 2 best players missing alongside playing the majority of the game with 10 men. All will be well. And this is true. This is what I said. I was frustrated that the market, for some reason, I said this in yesterday's show, I felt personally, and with respect to Dan, I feel like in yesterday's show on the Hybrid Squad that the market, again, is coming up too much. Losing at Bournemouth isn't because of the transfer market, as James points out in his tweet. We're down to 10 men for 60 minutes. Our 2 best players aren't there. It's not surprising that we've lost against a very decent, Bournemouth team. They've got a lot of quality, to be fair to them. They've not had the best of starts to the season, sure, but they've still got a lot of players that can hurt you. Semenyo's had a good season. Kluivert's a good player. They can really cause you a lot of problems. Evan Nilsson's a decent player. He's caused plenty of teams problems when he was at Porto. People forget, I think, that he's a Champions League level player, is Evan Nilsson. So it's a very astute piece of business by them. It's not surprising at all that down to 10 men that you're going to struggle, especially without your 2 best players, and arguably maybe one of your top 5 best players in Timber not being available as well. So, and not having the depth to be able to deal with that. Zinchenko not fit enough to start. Martinelli not fit enough to start. But we also have to look at ourselves. It's not just about luck. It's not just about luck. Because Arteta should have started Guarneri. And I said this yesterday. I said it on Sophie's show. I say it now. He should have started Guarneri. Trossard makes the mistake. Saliba makes a mistake. Raya makes mistakes. Kivior makes a mistake. It's not just about luck. We have to look at ourselves as well. We can't just go, we were unlucky. We need to be able to improve our ill discipline. We need to improve our errors. And for that reason, you can't just talk about luck. It's also about looking at where we can improve things. And my goodness, there are areas that we need to improve. But I think it's also fair to bring up the luck argument, because we have been incredibly unlucky this season. And I hope that starts to balance out very, very soon. Let's do a quick check on our poll before we wrap things up. 69% of you says Saliba should start the game. 31% of you say we should leave him out and practice for Liverpool. I think that's Philip's question will inspire me to write a piece on this today, so you can expect my full analysis of that question a little bit later on. Of course, you can find all my written pieces at liverpool.london. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. Do drop a like before you go, and I really look forward to speaking to you tomorrow morning. Mikel Arteta's press conference is today, so we'll be hearing from the manager, getting some more updates on the team, on where players are at. There's also an open training session, so we'll see if Saka trains. We'll see if, players like Martinelli train, Timber, see if he trains. So there's going to be a lot of information about who is and who isn't at training today. So make sure you look out for all that information. It will give us a much better idea of who and who isn't going to be available for the match against Shakhtar and, of course, then against Liverpool as well. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Appreciate your time. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.